Today we're going to take a look at some fantastic old accessories for Warhammer 40k that you might not remember or have forgotten about. Spiky bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. Alright, Hobby Maniacs, I'm Baer, and this is your 40k or hobby flashback for the week. So, you know a game's popular when it spawns a huge listing of accessories for its game throughout the years. We knew X-Wing was big when it started putting out accessories for like turn dials and maneuver bases and things like that, and everybody came up with acrylic tokens for it. We knew 40k was big when, Games Workshop started including the tokens in their books and then started printing the data cards and separately releasing template sets and things like that as well. This is a look at some of the older stuff here, like the old battle dice, or the vehicle damage dice, I guess they were called, an old line of sight laser marker that they came out with back in 5th edition, and their very first comprehensive set of tokens that you could buy separately, which was the same great green glowy acrylic, or I guess this is faux acrylic, I don't know, I guess it's acrylic. I never really even thought about it. Could be plastic, but they put this out in a 2-pack, I think it was back in 2007, 2008 as well. Now, you probably remember, if you haven't seen it yet, the little 5th edition bundle poster kind of flashback we did here. And this actually shows, I want to say 5th edition was the year of the kind of accessories, because they, like I said, they did the counter set here, which this is one of the 2 identical sprues that still happen to have here. But they also did, templates. They had their very first forte, or one of the very first, into, I think they did a City Fight mat that was like limited edition as well before this. But they have this green Citadel battle mat. Then here's the line of sight marker as well. It sold for $10 back then, which was pretty good value. They had the first craters, which were kind of, they're okay. They look detailed in here, but they kind of came a little less detailed once you got them into your hands. I think that was all that was all the accessories for this one, for 5th edition. So when you take a closer look at this sprue right here, you can see a lot of different things. Like, first off, there's a turn counter, which there's a little arrow here somewhere on the sprue. Here it is right here. So you put the arrow on it, and then you could turn it. It's basically to keep track of your turns, because remember, this was when the variable game length first came out, was 5th edition, so it was like a new thing. And you could also add in the little night fight symbol here, so you'd remember that it was night fight like at the beginning, or that you had to roll for it later on, because you used to have to roll for it from turn 5 forward. There was these little tokens right here that had the little flags on it that you could use for objectives, which were pretty sweet. These skulls, a lot of people use those for wound markers. Then they also introduced running for the first time in 5th edition 40k, and that's what these little monikers were. I think the double arrow was retreat. There was actually a key that came in the little packaging that told you what all this stuff was. I'm just going off of memory. Now, as far as the vehicle markers go, I believe it was a little bit different, but I think this is, went flat out, or maybe this is smoke. Yeah, this looks like it's smoked. What is that? Weapon destroyed, shaken, stunned. I think that's weapon destroyed. No, these are weapon destroyed. So there's 3 different weapon destroyed. So that's probably immobilized. This is probably exploded, and then super exploded, or maybe that's just exploded. It's hard to tell here. But there's this one. Maybe this was for your speed. It would tell you what speed it went. Anyways, I don't have the key, so I'm just kind of going off memory. And then there was this stuff over here, which you could kind of put down. I think this was for if you had rapid fired, or if you had fired a heavy weapon, so you could keep track of that. Now, this particular counter set, I think, sold for, and remember, this is 2007 prices, so who knows what it would be these days, but it went for $15 according to this, which, again, for a counter set, really not that bad, because you figure, custom acrylics, you tend to pay a lot more for, I feel like. And what was really neat about this was you could prime it, Primate Black, Primate Red, whatever matched your army. And then you could dry brush it or paint, paint on top of the symbols and make them all customized for your, to match your army, or you could just do them black and then gray so they matched all your armies. Now, another important thing to remember or to mention is right around this time, it was kind of like the heyday for Gale Force 9, a company that I guess is still around today. I think it was bought up by Battlefront, which is the maker of Flames of War. They started a company, John Kowaleski, great guy, amazing businessman, to basically produce. He was the first guy that came up with the idea of acrylic laser tokens. So he made tokens for everything. And, he would put these tokens out. You would see it at shows, at conventions, always selling this stuff, putting it out there, making some fresh stuff. I mean, the attack template that we all know and love was based off of his initial design. I don't think you're actually allowed to call it attack template. You can call it a measuring stick or whatever. So Gale Force 9 was really in the trenches around this time. I know they came around a lot earlier in the 2000s. By this time, they were producing more and more stuff. They were working with Privateer at the time. I think they stopped that at some point. But, like I was saying, like they were the first to do it, and they really put this stuff out, and they were really making a dent in the market because they had so much cool tokens and even they did tools. You could buy, if you were a store owner, you could buy the Gale Force 9 rack that came like fully stocked with like turn counters and vehicle tokens and troop tokens, wound packs, status markers, all sorts of stuff. Wine and cheese tokens were like a fan favorite for so many years. Nowadays, they don't really do that thing. They focus on board games. Doing a lot of board game stuff with Battlefront there, which makes sense because hey, they make tokens, and that's what half of board games are all about. So he's kind of moved on. I wouldn't say to board games are actually a bigger market than tabletop wargaming. And if you think about it, you look at the numbers that some of the industry websites put out for sales, and board games do a lot better than tabletop wargaming. So I would say he has moved on, and the whole company in general has moved on to bigger and better pastures, which is always what we want to see, right, with this hobby. Getting back to this, a game is big when it starts to have its own accessories, which we see with every release now. They do dice. Generally they do a data card set. I would love to see unit cards, kind of like how Fantasy Flight does. Now, we know with the new Silver Tower expansion card set that's coming out relatively soon, or has already come out by the time this video has hit the interwebs, that's pretty cool to see. Like, that gives me hope that some of their digital content they've been able to render down into cards. Like, you give me a Space Marine card pack, I will love you forever, Games Workshop. Now, another cool little accoutrement or accessory was the line of sight laser, which back in the day sold for only I think it was $10, which you're like, hey, $10 for a laser pointer, that's kind of pricey. Back in the day, sure. Nowadays, maybe not. I think it's probably on par. But the cool thing about this one was it was designed to go right over top of the miniature or the weapon or the tank or whatever it was. So you basically put this down, you got down to bird's eye view, you put this over the head, like I said, or the weapon or whatever, and then you aimed it. And the cool thing about this was it wasn't a dot. It was a targeting reticule, a bullseye right there, right? It's a little target symbol. And the farther away you got, the bigger this thing got. Because a lot of people, cover was a thing back then. And people would be like, no, you can't see through this, you can't see through that. But I'm like, I feel like if I'm way back here and you're 4 feet across the table, that I can most definitely see you based on this targeting reticle. Because remember, your field of vision gets bigger as you go, right? So this definitely represents that instead of just being a same static dot that didn't move, which I really liked about this. Now, you can still find these. They might be on eBay or whatever. I see them around from time to time. They go for about the same price, which still isn't bad these days. But, if they came out with something like this, it would be at least $20, I feel like, or I would say. One of the other releases, and this was earlier than those last two products I showed you, this was the vehicle damage dice set that Games Workshop put out. I want to say, well, let's see, does it have a copyright on it? No, not even a little bit. Oh well, but either way, this came out probably in mid-2000s, and it consisted of a set of these dice, and each one was different, and it had the code on the back, because when you rolled ordnance hits, that was actually a different thing. When you rolled glancing or penetrating, that was a different chart. It wasn't just a single chart that we have today. And if you got an ordnance 6, It was actually really bad because you would blow up the vehicle and anybody that was inside of it. So everybody was always trying to get those Ordnance 6s, you know, to basically pick up whole Land Raiders full of dudes or whole Rhinos full of dudes, because that was the thing back then, right? Like, you didn't have gargantuan creatures, you didn't have super heavy tanks. Like, that was stuff that people did, the narrative stuff from Forge World, you know, over on that table over there. There was no apocalypse at that point. So this was the big boogeyman of the day, was the Ordnance template, strength 10, AP 2. That stuff was all super scary to a lot of people. So this was a dice set, so you could basically, you know, you could either just kind of get it out and be like, oh, I caused this many hits, let me roll it, here's the result. Oh, 2 weapon destroyeds. I got you glancing on 6. And you're immobilized or whatever, and then, you know, you would just go from there. Or you could just basically, oh, that's the result? Okay, cool. And then you would just set it on the result and put it on your tank or whatever. But, you know, I always like seeing the mushroom cloud because I knew that I just picked up a whole tank right there. I don't know why I still have this tin, or why I even have, I just don't know, but I'd have it, and it was really cool when I dug this out. I was like, oh man, we gotta really do like something on accessories, and I was trying to come up with the most OG accessories and try to remember everything that was there, and those were the first 3 things I could find in my man cave closet there. So I thought it would be a fun little flashback for y'all. Some of y'all that remember it, some of y'all that don't, but like to be regaled with tales of a time of great hobby joy, which we're getting back to these days too. So it's always cool to see. So that's it for this hobby flashback. Thanks for watching.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.